It was a regular Monday evening at our house, tucked away on the edge of a big city. Kevin and I had fallen into our usual routine. He was relaxing on the couch with a beer after a long day at his auto repair shop, while I, Linda, was focused on my laptop, keeping an eye on the latest index and forex currency trends. Our home, a cozy three-story place we chose for its promise of a bright future, now felt like a battleground as our lives were drifting apart. "So, how's the market today?" Kevin asked casually, but I could sense the tension underneath. This had become normal for us. "Same as always, ups and downs." "Forex is looking good, though," I replied, trying to keep things calm. Kevin scoffed, setting his beer down a bit too forcefully. "Forex again? You know, not everything that shines is gold, Linda." I sighed, closing my laptop, ready for the conversation we'd had too many times. "And not every car that comes into your shop is worth fixing, but you do it anyway because you see the value in it." "Why can't you see the value in what I'm doing?" "Because cars are real, Linda. You can touch them, fix them, sell them. What you're doing throwing our money into the wind, hoping it comes back with more, is just reckless." I felt the anger rise, the same old argument wearing thin. Reckless? It's not reckless, Kevin. It's calculated. There's a difference between gambling and investing. I wish you'd try to understand that. Kevin stood up and started pacing. "Calculated? You call putting our hard-earned money into something as unpredictable as forex currency calculated?" "Yes, I do, because I don't go in blindly. I research, I study trends, I make informed decisions. It's no different from what you do with your shop." "My shop is a sure thing, Linda. People need cars." "My shop is a sure thing. People will always need car repairs. But this forex currency stuff, it's just a phase. What happens when it crashes? Then what?" "Kevin, we could lose money in any investment. Even the shop could face tough times. Nothing is guaranteed, but we've seen good returns on my investments. Doesn't that count for something?" Kevin stopped pacing and ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "It's not just about the money, Linda. It's about security, about not risking everything on a gamble. Why can't we invest more in the shop, expand it? That's a real, solid way to grow our money. And put all our eggs in one basket? What if something happens to the shop, Kevin? Diversification is important. That's basic investing." He shook his head, the gap between us feeling wider than ever. "Diversification, sure, but into something stable, not this digital nonsense." I stood up, feeling the need to defend my choices and my independence. "For someone who runs his own business, you're really closed-minded." "And you're really stubborn," he shot back. "All I'm saying is we could be using that money to build something lasting, something real, not just numbers on a screen." As usual, the conversation was going nowhere. "Let's just agree to disagree, okay? I won't criticize how you run your shop, and you don't criticize my investments." Kevin sighed, the fight draining out of him. "Fine, but just remember, Linda, when all this blows up in your face, don't say I didn't warn you." The tension between Kevin and me wasn't the only strain in our lives. His family dynamics added another layer of stress. Living close to his parents and sister meant we saw them often, and each visit reminded me of how different our views on family and responsibility were. One Friday afternoon, Kevin suggested we visit his parents. The idea alone made my stomach knot. It wasn't his parents I minded, it was Karen, Kevin's sister. Her lifestyle and choices always baffled me. "Come on, Linda, it's been ages since we saw them, and Mom's been asking about you. You know Dad is fighting cancer," Kevin pressed, noticing my hesitation. "Yeah, I bet Karen's missed me too," I muttered, my sarcasm not lost on Kevin. "Look, I know you two don't get along, but can't you just, I don't know, try for me?" He sighed. I agreed, "Fine, but I'm not staying if she starts talking about one of her shopping sprees." When we arrived, Karen was already there, showing off her latest designer bag. The way she acted, like she was better than everyone, immediately annoyed me. "Look at this, just got it yesterday. Isn't it fabulous?" she gushed, barely noticing us. "It's something," I managed to say, holding back my irritation. Kevin's mother, unaware of the tension, welcomed us. "Linda dear, so glad you could make it. You two should visit more often." The afternoon dragged on with Karen taking over the conversation, talking about her latest vacation and shopping adventures. I tried to stay calm, barely speaking, but my patience was running out. "So Linda, still playing with your index and bits?" Karen sneered, her tone full of contempt. "It's called investing, Karen. You should try it sometime, instead of wasting money on things you don't need," I shot back, my annoyance slipping out. Kevin gave me a warning look, but it was too late. Karen scoffed. "Investing? Please, like gambling online is something to brag about. At least when I spend money, I have something to show for it." "Something to show until it goes out of style next season," I retorted, unable to hold back. "That's enough, both of you," Kevin's father cut in, his voice firm. "We're here to enjoy each other's company, not to argue." The rest of the visit passed in uncomfortable silence. As we left, Kevin couldn't hide his frustration. "Linda, why do you have to provoke her? Can't you just let it go for one afternoon?" "Me, provoke her? She's the one who started it with her snide remarks. I'm just not going to sit there and take it, Kevin. Sometimes I wish you'd try a little harder for the sake of peace." "Try harder, Kevin. I'm not the one splurging on luxuries and flaunting them in everyone's face. Why doesn't anyone tell her to stop acting like a spoiled brat?" "Because she's family, Linda. We look out for each other, even if we don't always agree with what they're doing." "That's the thing, Kevin. Looking out for each other is one thing, but enabling bad behavior is another. There's a difference, and it's about time someone pointed it out to her." Kevin sighed, the weariness clear in his voice. I know, but what can we do? She's set in her ways, and Mom and Dad aren't going to change how they treat her. It's not just about Karen, Kevin. It's about us too. How are we supposed to plan for our future when there's always going to be this financial black hole in your family?" "We'll figure it out, Linda. We always do." The news hit us hard and fast. Kevin's dad, Mr. Thomas, had lost his battle with cancer. One moment we were talking about treatment options, and the next, we were mourning. Amid the shock and grief, Karen took charge of the funeral arrangements. It wasn't long before she dropped a bombshell. Sitting in our living room, Kevin looked like a storm cloud had settled over him. "Linda, Karen says the funeral is going to cost $90,000. She expects us to cover half." I almost choked on my tea. $90,000? Kevin, that's crazy. Are we paying for a funeral or a royal wedding? Kevin's face darkened, his eyes narrowing. "Now's not the time, Linda. This isn't about the money. It's about giving my dad the send-off he deserves. $90,000? There has to be a mistake. That's just too much." Kevin's voice rose, and I could see the vein in his forehead pulsing. "My dad just died, Linda, and here you are, arguing over money. What's wrong with you?" I flinched at his harshness. "I'm not arguing, Kevin. I'm just shocked. We've never even spent that kind of money on our own house." Kevin stood up abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. "You know what? I don't need this. I don't need you telling me what's too much for my father's funeral. If you can't look past your spreadsheets for once, maybe you should just stay out of it." His words hurt, but I swallowed my response. This was grief talking, not my Kevin. "I'm sorry, Kevin. I'll transfer the $50,000 to Karen. It's just, this is a lot to take in." Kevin paced the room, his hands buried in his hair, a gesture of frustration I knew all too well. "Yeah, well, it's not just about the money, Linda. It's about doing right by him. And if that means paying whatever it costs, then so be it." When I confirmed the transfer to Karen, Kevin barely acknowledged it. He seemed lost in his own world of grief and anger. The distance between us felt immense, even though we were just a few feet apart in our living room. Walking into the funeral agency, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. The past few days had been a blur of grief and confusion, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to find out. "I'm here for Mr. Thomas's funeral," I told the woman behind the counter, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up from her computer with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're a day late. Mr. Thomas was cremated yesterday." My heart stopped. What? But I was told the funeral was today. She shook her head gently, her eyes full of sympathy. "The family requested to move the date forward. I'm very sorry for your loss and the confusion." I stood there in shock, my mind racing. How could Kevin not tell me? Why was I kept in the dark about such an important change? Fuming, I dialed Kevin's number, my fingers shaking with anger and disbelief. "Kevin, why didn't you tell me the funeral was moved? I just showed up like a fool, only to find out I missed everything." Kevin's voice was cold and distant. "Because I didn't think you cared, Linda. All you've done is complain about the costs and question every decision. Why would I think you'd want to be there?" "Because he was my father-in-law, because I'm your wife. How could you just leave me out like that?" My voice cracked, a mix of hurt and fury. "Well, maybe not for long," he shot back, and I could hear the bitterness in his voice. "What's that supposed to mean?" I demanded, my heart sinking. "I'm done, Linda. I can't do this anymore. I can't be with someone who's so indifferent. You care more about your bitcoins and index than this family. I've got the divorce papers ready." His words hit me like a slap in the face. Divorce? Was he serious? You're kidding, right? Over this? "Kevin, we can talk about it. We can work things out." "No, Linda. It's too late. The house is going up for sale. We'll split everything and go our separate ways." That was it. I was speechless, the reality crashing down on me. This wasn't happening, it couldn't be. Stunned, I wandered back to the parking lot, feeling lost. As I was heading back to my car, I saw Karen pulling in, driving a brand new luxury car. The sight of it made my blood boil. "Nice car, Karen. Where'd you get the money for this inheritance?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Her smile didn't reach her eyes as she casually tossed her hair back. "Yeah, something like that. Dad left me a little something." The way she talked about her father while carrying shopping bags, without a hint of sadness, was infuriating. "A little something, huh? Looks like mourning is treating you pretty well." Karen's smile faded, replaced by a smirk. "Well, we all grieve in our own ways, don't we? Some of us invest in index, and some of us in cars." I clenched my fists, the unfairness of it all burning inside me. This was all wrong. Kevin and I were falling apart, and here was Karen, benefiting from the chaos. "Enjoy the car, Karen. Looks like it cost a pretty penny, or should I say, a pretty dollar." She laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the empty parking lot. "Oh, Linda, always so worried about money. Don't worry, it's all been taken care of." I watched her walk away, her laughter lingering in the air. The man I loved wanted nothing to do with me, and the family I had tried to be a part of was showing their true colors. The days after the funeral felt like I was walking through a thick fog of disbelief and betrayal. The weight of the divorce papers in my bag felt like a heavy burden, a constant reminder of my crumbling marriage. But the sight of Karen's new luxury car planted a seed of suspicion that I couldn't ignore. Determined to find out what was really going on, I decided to visit the funeral home, hoping to uncover some answers. Walking into the funeral home, a mix of suspicion and determination fueled my steps. It felt surreal being there under these circumstances, but I needed answers. The place was quiet, the air filled with a solemn stillness that matched its purpose. At the reception desk, I saw a familiar face, Joyce, a classmate from high school. It was unexpected to see her there. "Joyce," I exclaimed, a bit too loudly for the setting. "I didn't know you worked here." She looked up, surprise crossing her face before she recognized me. "Linda? Wow, it's been ages. What brings you here? Is there something I can help with?" I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the conversation ahead. Yeah, actually, it's about my father-in-law's funeral. I've heard my father-in-law's funeral was arranged here, I said. Joyce's expression became professional, but I could see a hint of curiosity in her eyes. Sure, let me pull up the details. Give me a sec. As she typed, I fidgeted, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. When she found the record, her brows furrowed. Okay, here it is. The service was pretty standard. Cremation was requested, keeping things simple. The total came to $10,000. My heart sank. $10,000? But that's not what we were told. We paid $90,000, or at least, we were led to believe that's what it cost. Joyce paused, her face filled with concern. That's a huge difference. It was Karen who handled the arrangements, right? Everything here is billed at $10,000, no more. The pieces were starting to fit together, forming a picture I didn't want to see. Can you print me a copy of that bill? I need proof. Sure thing, Joyce said, her tone sympathetic. She quickly printed out a copy and handed it to me. Holding the paper, it felt like I had just found a key piece of a puzzle that could unravel a bigger deception. Thanks, Joyce. I need to sort this out. Armed with the printout from the funeral home, my next step was confronting the family, especially Karen. The air felt heavy as I drove to my mother-in-law's house, where I knew they'd all be gathered, probably discussing the estate and the aftermath of the funeral. My stomach churned with a mix of dread and determination. When I arrived, the house was eerily quiet. I hesitated at the door, gathering my courage before stepping inside. The sound of my footsteps echoed through the hallway, announcing my arrival. In the living room, Kevin, Karen, and my mother-in-law were seated, looking like a picture of mourning that was about to be shattered. My mother-in-law, her eyes shadowed with grief, broke the silence first. Dear, we missed you yesterday at the funeral. We thought you'd be there. Taking a deep breath, I replied, I was told it was today. I'm so sorry for your loss. My voice was steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. I then turned to Kevin. Can we talk in private? I hope to spare his mother any more distress. Kevin's response cut through the room. No secrets here. You're not part of this family anymore, remember? His words stung, but I pushed on, pulling out the bill from the funeral home. Then explain this to me. The funeral cost $10,000, not the $90,000 Karen claimed. Where did the rest go? Kevin looked genuinely shocked, turning to Karen with a bewildered expression. What's this about? Karen squirmed under our gazes. I needed the money, Karen finally admitted, her voice small. Her confession hung in the air, heavy with tension. Kevin's mom, overhearing, added, Your father saved for his own funeral. I even gave Karen $15,000 more to cover everything. I did the math out loud, feeling the tension rise. $100,000 in total, and only $10,000 spent. Karen, where's the rest? Flustered, Karen admitted to spending the money on a new car for herself, her eyes avoiding mine. I expected Kevin to explode, but instead, he gently told Karen, You shouldn't have done that. Be more careful next time. His response shocked me. Careful? She committed fraud, Kevin, and you're okay with that? Kevin's justification left me stunned. You wouldn't understand. You've got no family. You don't get what it means to stick together. That was the last straw. In front of everyone, I signed the divorce papers with a flourish. Karen, you owe me $50,000. Pay up, or I'm going to the police. Kevin's protests followed me as I walked out, but I didn't look back. I had seen and heard enough. The betrayal was complete, and so was my resolve. As I walked away, the finality of my decision settled in. There was no going back, only forward, away from the lies and deceit that had tainted what I once considered family. Packing up my life into boxes felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's story unfold. The for sale sign outside the house was a stark reminder of how final everything was. By afternoon, I was settling into a small apartment that felt more like a fresh start than a downgrade. That evening, as I was sorting through the remnants of my past life, my phone rang. Kevin's name flashed on the screen, a name I no longer felt any attachment to. I answered, curiosity overtaking my resentment. "Linda, you need to back off from Karen." Kevin's voice came through, harsher than usual. "Back off?" I laughed, cold and sharp. "Not a chance, Kevin. She took from me, and I want it back. Your sister is a thief." Kevin was silent for a moment. "She's family. You wouldn't understand." "Family?" I scoffed. "That ship has sailed, Kevin. As far as I'm concerned, you and your sister are just people I used to know." He tried to argue, but I cut him off. "Save it. Karen has 3 weeks to return my money, or I'm pressing charges. And you stay out of it. You're nothing to me now." Hanging up, I felt a mix of sadness and liberation. The man I once loved was now just a memory. The man I once loved had become just another obstacle in my path to reclaiming my life. 3 weeks later, a knock at my door signaled the return of my $50,000. Karen stood there, her posture defiant, a smirk on her lips. "Here's your money," she spat, thrusting the envelope into my hands. "Happy now, you money-grubbing witch." I took the envelope, my gaze steady. "It's not about the money, Karen," I called out. "It's about principle, about not letting you walk all over people." She laughed, hollow and bitter. "Whatever helps you sleep at night." As she turned to leave, I called out, "Just remember, Karen, karma's real. What goes around comes around." Closing the door, I leaned against it, the envelope heavy in my hand. The money was a small victory, but the real win was standing up for myself, refusing to be a victim of their greed and lies. Life had found a new rhythm, calmer, more predictable when, out of the blue, my phone rang. The number on the screen was one I hadn't seen in a while. It was Kevin, a voice from a past I had neatly put away. "Hey, I need a favor." A big one. Kevin's voice sounded more worn than I remembered. I paused, the suddenness of the call catching me off guard. "A favor? Kevin, we're past favors, don't you think?" "It's Karen. She's in deep this time. Debt's up to her eyeballs, and the wolves are at the door. We've sold everything, the house, the shop, it's still not enough." His words took a moment to sink in. "And you're calling me? Why? I'm not part of the circus anymore, Kevin." He sighed, the sound of desperation clear. "Come on, don't be like that. You got out, made it big with your trading. Can't you spare something for old time's sake?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, he still saw me as a lifeline for their mess. Spare something for her, after she nearly ruined us with her lies? You've got some nerve, Kevin. It's not just for her, it's for all of us. You wouldn't be where you are without me, don't forget that, he countered, his voice edged with bitterness. A short, sharp laugh escaped me. "Where I am is despite you, not because of you. You think I owe you. That's rich." There was silence on the line, heavy and uncomfortable. "So that's it then? You're going to turn your back on us?" he asked. "Us? There's no us, Kevin. There hasn't been for a long time. And as for turning my back, I think you've got me confused with someone who still cares." Hanging up, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, yes, but also relief. That chapter of my life was truly closed now. Sitting in the living room of my new house, a place that finally felt like home, I knew I was ready to move on. I had earned with my hard work and determination. I realized how far I had come. This was my sanctuary, built not on lies and manipulation, but on my strength and effort.